Hello students, welcome you all back to the subject of Industrial Engineering and Management. This video we will be discussing about Unit 4. Unit 4 is about inspection and quality control. To start off with, the syllabus is more focused towards the inspections, the role of inspection, methods and classifications of inspection, and then we will slightly move on to the concept of samplings where you will get about single, double, multiple and random samplings. And at the last, we'll be discussing about OC curves, which is also called as the operating characteristics curves. So in this video, we'll be seeing about the topics which have been highlighted in red. What is quality? As said by Henry Ford, one of the famous person who have revolutionized the concept of industrial engineering, quality is not an accident, but it is the result of intelligent efforts. So put together, quality is conformance to the requirement. The requirements may be differed from one person to other. So depending upon what the customer requirement is about, if you are able to meet that requirement, you say that the product is of good quality. So to start off with, before we move on to the concepts of inspection, we wanted to know what basically a process is about. An industry or an organization, a process is a series of actions or steps which are taken in order to achieve a particular product. So what comes inspection? How far or how well inspection is related to process? An inspection is the verification of process or product quality to pre-identified quality specifications before, during the use and after the production process is happening. So what does inspection gives you? It is the key important parameter, it's key important process which helps you to ensure the quality. It also helps in reducing the overall losses which are incurred by the industry, and also it also helps you to find the assignable cost of defective work. Should we go for inspection in 100% or should we go for only a sample inspection? That could be the biggest question for an industry. So there are it again, the answer depends upon case to case basis. If you are going for a sampling inspection, there are few circumstances, there are few scenarios which will help you to ensure that sampling inspection will give you an overall picture. But there are few cases where you are more prone, or we are more bound to do the 100% of inspection. So what sampling inspection does is, the important concept of sampling inspection is that it takes only very few products or very few samples from the entire lot. It doesn't take into account the entire lot for the inspection. One important advantage of sampling inspection is that the cost of inspection is low, whereas as you very well knew that when it is you going for 100% inspection, you know that you are going to take every product into the account. So which means that all the products, there are so much of time involved, so much of cost involved, and it consumes more cost for the organization. But one of the good advantages is that it is more 100% inspection. 100% of inspection is will be more prone or will be more beneficial when you are moving on for products where they are more subject to errors, because due to fatigue, boredom of inspectors, particularly if the lot size is large, the inspection and the inspection is done manually, you are more prone that the 100% inspection will give you a better results. Whereas in sampling inspection, the one disadvantage is that it is more prone to get sampling error. But of course, the sampling error, the magnitude in which the value or probably the effect of sampling error could also be estimated. But in 100% inspection, it is quite very minimal. It is something very negligible. So you are very sure that the errors are very minimal. Of course, there are few errors which will be arising due to the fatigue of the workers and other things. In 100% inspection, since you have you are bringing all the plots into the inspection scenario, when there is a human interaction, you find that the effectiveness of that inspection will be very less. Whereas in sampling inspection, the human interaction is very minimal, because you are not bringing all the products into the inspection scenario. So very lesser possibility of the products being interacted by the human. So obviously the effectiveness of the entire product, or the effectiveness of the entire process is not going to be affected to a greater extent. Of course, it comes again with the risk. There are few risks which are involved in it. Whereas, see, one important aspect of sampling inspection is that for a product where destructive testing, which means that the product will get failure or will get breakdown. Now, say for example, if you want to test maybe you could of late we have been seeing about so many cars we are staying who have been saying that we have got 5-star ratings in the safety features. So which means that it is the only way of doing a safety test is to crash the car, where the product will be getting broken and the product will undergo destruction. So in that cases, you cannot go for 100% inspection. You can only go for sampling inspection, where you will take very few samples from the lot. So that will give you the overall picture about what the actual quality is about. What are the objectives of inspection? The main objective is to collect the information regarding the performance of the product and to check up whether the established standard for used or maintained. And it also helps you to sort out the poor quality of manufactured product, through which you can ensure that you can detect any possible source of weakness or any failures in the products which are finished. And also you can increase the reputation by protecting the customers from receiving poor quality products, because that is ideal objective, right? When the product is moving into the inspection phase and you see that the product is moving out of the inspection phase as a successful product, then you can very well claim that the product to be more successful, and the customers are much more delighted and happy that the product which they are receiving are of higher quality, and they will be very confident that they won't be receiving any poor quality products. So that is the key, one of the key objective of going for your inspections. And the purpose, why do we need to go for inspection? To determine if the process is changing, and also to determine if the process is approaching the specification limit. We could see that we usually have this concept of a normal distribution curve. Some of you might have seen that there is an upper specification limit, there's a lower specification limit, right? So when the curve is moving towards both the extremes of a specification limit, you could see that the process is almost closer to getting deviated. So that gives you an indication that you have to put more number of you have to be very cautious about what the process is about, and the inspection has to be very more stringent, so that to ensure that there are no poor quality products which are moving out of your plant. What are the stages of inspection? First thing is, the first stage of inspection is about the inspection of incoming raw materials. It is nothing but the raw materials which have been procured or which have been received from your suppliers. All the purchased raw materials and parts that are supplied, it should be going for inspection, because you have to ensure that the product is not of poor quality. There may be, because of the errors from the vendors, or there may be any damage, or there may be any issues during the transportation. So all these possibilities could be occurred. So we have to ensure that there are few inspection has to be done to maybe a entire lot size, or probably a sample of the entire lot size, and that has to be taken into account before you move on for your actual manufacturing. So where do you do this inspection? It can either do at the supplier's end or at the manufacturer scale. The the term of manufacturer scale is very important, because once it reaches the manufacturing plant, it will start spending the regular procedural of all the methodologies or all the operations which are to be done on the raw materials. So once it reaches the manufacturing plant, there is no looking back, and the process will carry on, and it will go on continuously. So you have to check whether the product is meeting the required standard, or the raw material is of good quality. That has to be done during the initial stage of the during the supply's end, or you can also do it when the product is reaching the manufacturer scale. There are a few constraints too. In some cases, when the incoming raw materials are huge, or they are coming in large quantity, and of course, if they're coming in huge transportation, it is ideal that, or it is economical that you inspect them at the place of the vendor or supplier, rather than waiting it until the product reaches the manufacturer scale, because that will again a little bit consume much of a time, and it will consume much of a cost. So if they are huge in quantity, it is more ideal, or it is more advisable to inspect them at the place of the vendors. The second stage of inspection is the inspection during the production process. So this inspection is done when it's called as a work in progress. Whenever the material is moving on from one plant, or probably one work cell to the other work cell, you call them to be work in process. So the inspection during this transformation or this transportation is called as your inspection of production process. It is done in various work centers. Probably you can also check it at the centers of the men, the machine, and also you can look out for any possible places where you see that they are the critical points of the entire production network. So you can also check you can also do the inspection over there. So one key advantage of doing an inspection in the production process is that it helps you to prevent the wastage of time and money on defective units, and also it helps you in preventing the delays in assembly, because once the product is moving out of the production line and it is reaching the assembly line, there if you find that the product is not meeting the required standard, then again all the money, all the time which has been spent on manufacturing that particular component is considered as a waste. And also there will be a delay in the assembly line because you have to wait until a good product reaches the assembly line, right? The next stage of inspection is inspection of finished goods. It is quite as simple as that. It is once the product has completely manufactured and it is moved out for it is ready for dispatch. It is called as the last stage when you check up all the finished goods at the dispatch stage, right? So it helps you to ensure that you are having a quality check before the product is reaching the customer end. You are doing at the start of your manufacturing process at the raw material inspection. Then during the production you also do inspection, which is called as inspection of production process, and also at the later stage, which is the inspection of finished goods. Once the product is reaching the end customer, you are going to ensure that it is moving in a good quality from the manufacturing plant. There are few methods of inspection too. We have been seeing about the stages of inspection, and now what are the various methods of inspection. First one is 100% inspection. Of course, as I said, 100% inspection is ideal, but an ideal scenario incurs so much of cost and time, and it requires, of course, more number of inspectors. So there is a more possibility of spending so much of time for when you're opting for your 100% of inspection. Of course, this helps you in a good way that there is no sampling error because all the products are subjected to inspection. So the errors might be occurring only due to the fatigue and negligence of the supervisor, because since he is since he's looking after large quantities. In sampling inspection, there are only very few quantities which will be coming for inspection, whereas in 100% inspection, since all the materials or all the components are coming for inspection, the worker will be undergoing a fatigue, so there might be a possibility of error occurring there. That is the only possible. But unlike the other scenario where there is a sampling error refers to misinterpretation of the data, which means that if you take a sample and you see that the sample is good quality, you consider that lot to be of good quality, right? On the other hand, if the sample which you have taken is not meeting the required standard, we consider the lot to be of poor quality. So that is called a sampling error. That is not possible. That will not occur in this case since it is a 100% inspection. So a few of the examples where you are going for 100% inspection is the jet engines, the aircrafts, and medical equipments. Of course, medical equipments have to be going for 100% of inspection because any error over occurring there will result in death of a patient, right? So where there is more criticality of the component and when there is more criticality of its application, we go for 100% of inspection. Second category of inspection is the sampling inspection, where you randomly select few samples and the samples, there is no specific, of course, there are few ways or few methods of choosing a sample, but sampling inspection is a little bit cheaper and it's more quicker too, since you are not going to look up to all the quantities, of course, all the components for inspection. It requires a lesser number of inspectors, and more importantly, as I said, it is more applicable to products where the product is more possibility of getting destructive, which means that the possibility of the product getting breakage, or probably the possibility of the products may fail during the inspection, right? So that is where, in case of destructive test, you have to go for sampling inspection because the product will undergo deformation. Now, what are the drawbacks of inspection? The key important drawback of inspection is that it adds cost to the product, but it doesn't bring any value. Of course, so we have been discussing about lean in the few chapters earlier, right? So what lean gives you is the elimination of waste, and the waste definition of waste is adding only cost and not value to the product. So of course, inspection is considered to be a waste. You can eliminate the concept of inspection if you're doing it right the first time. That is what Henry Ford had and said. So of course, there are the workers will undergo fatigue, and the monotony may affect some of the inspection judgments too. So it is not that it is the only way of segregating the bad items from production. So inspection is it is misinterpreted in a way that it is not the only way to prevent the production of bad items. It is only about the prevention of bad items reaching the customers, right? So inspection also helps you in minimizing the errors too, but it is not the only way of preventing the production of bad items. That is somehow a misconception is there about the concept of inspection. So what is sampling and acceptance sampling? uh, we have been seeing about sampling. You have to take sampling or inspection, you have to do sampling inspection, you have to take samples. So what sampling refers to, it is the process or technique of selecting a representative part of a population for the purpose of determining parameters or characteristics of the whole population. So sampling has to be a good representative of the population. So it should represent the actual characteristics of the entire population from which you are taking it. So once you see what sampling have been done, we'll there is another term which also have a relative meaning to that, which is acceptance sampling. Acceptance sampling, it is a decision making tool in which the decisions are made to either accept or reject the products. So how do you take this sample? This is the entire set of population you could see. So from that you take a set of population that is called as sample, and from that sample each representative is called as the element, that is called as the sampling element. So sampling element is a unit of analysis or case which can be a person, a group, or some organization which is being measured, that is called as the sampling element, and sampling unit is called as the elements which are available for selection during the sampling process. I think probably this image gives you an overall picture about what the population is about and what this sample is referring to, and from those sample what does each of the element refers to, right? So in ideal case, you know that each sampling element has an equal chance of being selected, but of course you are not going to do select each sample, each element, but you are going to choose only a sample. Why is sampling very important? It is because it saves cost. First thing, it saves time, and more importantly, it increases the chances of accuracy. Because of sampling, you see that the reliability of the results can be very high. Hence why you can also increase the chances of obtaining more accurate and more reliable results without compromising the cost. So which means that the amount of sampling error has been minimized when you are going for sampling. Again, few importances of sampling. It is the ideal way of dealing with a large population when the population is very huge, right? You cannot bring every population or every element into the inspection. So it is the only way to deal with the large populations. Of course, studying whole population can be destructive because, as I said, whenever the example of the safety of the cars being tested, if you want to test the safety of cars, you have to undergo a crash test. So when the entire sample or the population can be destructive, you have to choose for sampling, which is a representative of the entire population. Few of the basic terminologies, the concept of sampling. First one is non-conformance. What non-conformance refers to is any deviation from a specific requirement for a characteristics of a component. For example, a component which have a characteristics of length, we measure a characteristic called length, we measure a characteristic called weight, then if you see that there is a deviation from the requirement or the required standard measurement, you call them to be a non-conformance. And the unit which has that non-conformance, it may be one or more non-conformance present, you call that to be a non-conforming unit. So any particular, if it is non-conformance to the length, it is called as conformance number 1. Non-conformance to other parameter, you call that to be non-conformance 2. So a non-conforming unit may have one or more non-conformance in it. What is a critical non-conforming unit? A unit of product which fails to conform to a specific requirement for one or more critical characteristics. Now, say for example, an ideal characteristics of a helmet is that it should not be undergoing deformation when a heavy load is applied, right? That is a critical characteristic. If that one particular unit, if that characteristic is being failed, right, you can list out 2 or 3 characteristics. Of course there could be other characteristics too. If the example the key characteristics is getting failed, you call that critical non-conforming unit. So that is the reason you have to ensure that all the products are meeting the critical requirements, and that's the inspection. The ideal objective of inspection to ensure that no product which is not meeting the requirement or which is not having the required standard measurement, which is considered to be non-conformance, it is not moving out of the plant, it is not reaching the customer. That is the ideal objective of your inspection is about. What are the requirements of sampling? First one is lot size. What is lot? It is usually known as the entire set of population, and inspection level, which we have seen the previous slides, and EQL refers to acceptable quality level. And the requirement, next requirement is the type of sampling plan we are going to use. It can be a single, double, or multiple sample. So how does the sampling process occur? First thing is you have to take a sample size of n, and what does n refers to? I'll put about what n is about, right? So n is refers to the sample size, and small n refers to sample size, and capital N refers to the lot size. Once you take a sample, you have to inspect all the elements in the sample. It can be 10, 20, or 100 depending upon the sample or depending upon the population from which you are taking the sample. Then you have to find out what are the actual defectives, D. If you see that the actual defective D is you compare that with your acceptance number C. What is acceptance number? The maximum number of deviations, the maximum number of defects which can be present in a sample. And of course, it again from case to case basis. If it is 100% a defect-free product, then you have to ensure that the number of defectives is 0. If you are expecting for a 90% of quality products, then of course the number of defectives has to be less than 10%, right? So if you compare that, and you have to reject the lot if the D is greater than C, which means that if your number of defectives is greater than your acceptance numbers, you are going to reject it and you are return the lot to the supplier. On the other hand, if you find that the D is less than C, right, you are going to accept the lot. And if you are before you are going to reject, either there are two options of rejecting the lot. Once you see that the number of defective is greater than the acceptance number, you can do two things. One thing, either you can do 100% of inspection of the entire lot and then take a decision, or else if you are very sure that it is one of the critical characteristics, that is what the previous slide says you, right? If the critical non-conforming, if there are one or more critical characteristics which are not meeting the required standard, then you can of course obviously resend the entire lot to the supplier. You can return back the lot to the supplier, right? So these are the characteristics of a good sample design. Of course, we'll be discussing about the other types of sample, single, double, and multiple sampling in the next few slides. So a characteristic of a good sample, it must be truly representative of the entire population, and it must be viable in the context of funds available for the research study. Of course, it is nothing but dealing about the cost. It has to be cost effective. You cannot just take with the available resource or with the available cost which have been with the organization or the industry can bear. You have to take the sample which are more viable to that fund which are available, right? So, and more importantly, the sample which you are taking and the results should be in a such a way that it can be applied in general with a reasonable level of confidence. In a statistics, we say that at 95% level of confidence, right? 5%, which is 90% level of confidence. There are two categories, right? 95% and 90% of confidence level. So with the good reasonable confidence level, the entire results of the sample has to be applied to the general population. That is how a good sample design has to be. Fine. Thank you for your listening. We'll continue the other topics in the next video.